All right, so this video marks the first sprint of 2018, the Preservation Sprint 10. That started right after break. Here we have the steps to production document where we have successfully finished milestone 1. So that's the preservation catalog, mob validation, druid to druid, seed preservation catalog. And we're on our way to finishing milestone 2, which is the storage validation, Moab to catalog. So right now we're seeding our catalog, and then we will run Moab to catalog on prod. And we have started in on milestone 3, which is a catalog validation, existence check catalog to Moab. Next, we added documentation in our GitHub wiki for validation results, reporting, and tracking, which has some explanation on some of our code, including descriptions, status for the preserved copy, REST calls that we need to set up still, preserved object handler result codes, kind of what they're used for, why we use them, the logging and door workflow reporting. So during the sprint, we were able to successfully hook up writing errors to the door workflow, so they show up in Argo. So, for example, if we update the workflow and send this druid a process name called Moab valid, and let's say we send it a test error, hit enter, we see that to this druid, it was sent error to workflow service for preservation audit workflow, Moab valid. And so if we come here to the druid and re-index it, note that you don't have to re-index. It refreshes on its own, but it takes a few minutes, and so I'm just re-indexing so you can see it quicker. We see that Moab valid has a test error. And we could scroll down and see the workflow that this has the preservation audit workflow, and it has our actual test error that we did. This is from some previous other call. So this is useful if there are errors that need to be dealt with, like if the Moab is invalid and we need to display that so someone can get that Moab remediated. We wrote up some documentation for creating a workflow object in console, as well as cloning it and modifying the workflow definition if needed. We also added some more documentation in our Moab versioning gem. We talked with Tim Marconi, who's from UCSD, and we asked for permission to use some of his documentation. We were able to use some of the documentation to put in the wiki that was fuller than the README, and so here we can see it just explains a little bit more in depth what's happening, what methods and classes are used in the Moab versioning. Next thing we did was we completed the existence check Moab to catalog. So right now in our project, I on purpose added an incorrect version directory to one of the Moabs, just so I can show you how the Moab to catalog check existence works. So we added rake tasks, performance profiling, and tweaked some audit timestamp fields. So here's an example of the rake task for the M2C exist. Make this bigger for you guys. And hit enter. We see that it's starting. You can check the log profile existence storage routes for profiling detail. So if we go to our log, cat development, we see that for every druid in our catalog right now, it shows that the incoming version matches the preserved copy, it matches the preserved object, and the preserved copy DB was updated. So for the druid that I messed up, we see that for JJ925BX9565, we get an invalid Moab validation error, missing directory data manifest, and version 3. So we see that this error is actually sent to the workflow service. And if we go back to that Druid, and refresh it, we see that error actually shows up here. So we're currently running seeding. So after that finishes, we'll run MCC on the production. And lastly, we started on the catalog to Moab check existence. And so we're in the process of creating a to production checklist for the C2M check existence method. And this will be one of our goals in the upcoming sprint. Thank you for listening.